You're broke because you think you don't have any money. It sounds ridiculous, but let me explain. The amount of money that you have in your bank account is determined by two things. Number one, how much money you have coming in, and number two, how much money is going out. So if you have more money coming in than going out, then you'll end up with more money. If you have less money coming in than going out, then you're going to be left with less money. This seems so simple, right? Yet most people get this completely wrong. According to the Stoics, it's because they are misunderstanding what they actually control. I want to share with you 4 lessons from the Stoics that are going to help you understand what you control, what you don't control when it comes to money. And hopefully by the end of this episode, you can begin to change your mindset so that you can finally start getting ahead. The first lesson is that we often misunderstand what we control and what we don't control. Seneca writes in his book on the shortness of life, "We complain that our days are few, but we act as if they were infinite." He was pointing out that we think we have an unlimited amount of time. But if we actually looked at our calendars, we would see that we really don't. Our time is limited, yet we waste a lot of it doing things that don't matter. We spend countless hours worrying about things that are out of our control. We worry about the economy, we worry about interest rates, we worry about our boss or our employees. But none of those things are actually within our control. And when we realize this, we stop wasting time and energy on things that ultimately don't matter. Instead, we focus on what we do have control over. We can control the effort we put into our work, the skills we develop, and the habits we adopt. Those are the things that will make the biggest difference in our lives, not the things that are beyond our control. So when it comes to your finances, ask yourself, what do I actually have control over? You can control how much money you make, and you can control how much money you keep. These are the only 2 things that you can actually control. Everything else is out of your hands. Don't waste your time and energy worrying about things that you cannot change. Instead, focus on what you can control. That's where you'll see the biggest difference. But then there's another group of people who say, "No, I don't accept that. I believe in free will. I believe that we have the power to choose anything that we want to choose." And so for that person, I would say, okay, then why aren't you wealthy? Because if you had the power to choose anything, then why aren't you choosing to become wealthy? If you had free will, why haven't you exercised that free will to become wealthy? And that leads us to the second lesson, which is that we can voluntarily choose to live like we're poor when we're actually rich. Epicurus writes, "Poverty is not being poor, but being unwilling to make oneself rich." Most people have the power to become wealthy, but they voluntarily choose not to. They choose to live paycheck to paycheck, choose to make excuses, they choose to complain. They choose to blame others for their lack of wealth. But the truth is, they have the power to make themselves wealthy, but they voluntarily choose not to. This is especially true if you live in a developed country. If you live in a Western country, you have access to some of the greatest opportunities in the history of the world to make money. There has never been a time in history where it has been easier to build wealth. The barriers to entry for starting a business have never been lower. The amount of information available to you has never been higher. You literally have all the knowledge of the world at your fingertips. There's no excuse to be poor in today's day and age, yet most people choose to be. They choose to live like they're poor when they're actually rich. If you want to break free from this cycle, then you need to make a conscious choice to stop living like you're poor. You need to stop making excuses and start taking responsibility. You need to stop complaining and start working. You need to stop blaming others and start focusing on what you can control. When you make this choice, when you make the choice to stop living like you're poor, then you'll start to see a change in your financial situation. But then again, some of you might say, yeah, sure, but what if I lose my job? What if the market crashes? What if something happens outside of my control? I need to prepare for these things. And that brings us to the third lesson, which is that we can voluntarily choose to make ourselves vulnerable when we actually don't need to. Marcus Aurelius writes, "He who makes himself necessary to others is like a rock or a mountain that cannot be moved." When we make ourselves indispensable to others, we remove ourselves from the whims of fate, become more resilient to whatever life throws our way. But most people don't do this. Most people make themselves replaceable. They don't develop skills that are in high demand. They don't become indispensable to their employers. They don't build multiple streams of income. As a result, they find themselves at the mercy of fate. When the economy crashes, they lose their jobs. When the market turns, they lose their investments, and something unexpected happens. They lose their peace of mind. If you want to avoid this fate, then you need to make yourself indispensable. You need to develop skills that are in high demand. You need to become valuable to others. When you do this, you'll be able to weather any storm that life throws your way. You'll be able to take care of yourself and your loved ones no matter what happens. Now, some of you might still not agree with this. Some of you might say, no, I don't believe in being indispensable. I don't believe in being immune to the ups and downs of life. I just want to enjoy the ride. I want to enjoy the highs, and I don't want to worry about the lows. And that's fine. If that's what you want, then you need to accept the consequences of that decision. You need to accept that you'll always be at the mercy of fate. You need to accept that you'll always be vulnerable to the whims of the market, to the changes in the economy, to the unexpected events in life. If that's what you want, then so be it. But don't complain about it. Don't blame others for it. Don't make excuses for it. Accept it. Accept the fact that this is the path that you've chosen. And that brings us to the fourth and final lesson, which is that we often confuse happiness with pleasure. Seneca says life is not good and bad. It's just a place to get rich or a place not to get rich. In order to get what we want, in order to achieve our goals, we must sometimes endure pain and suffering. We must make sacrifices. We must delay gratification. But most people don't do this. Most people chase after pleasure. They seek instant gratification. They avoid pain and suffering. But this is not the path to success. The path to success is the opposite. It's the willingness to endure pain and suffering. It's the willingness to make sacrifices. It's the willingness to delay gratification. If you want to get rich, if you want to achieve your financial goals, then you need to make a choice. You need to choose between pleasure and pain, between instant gratification and delayed gratification. And hopefully by now you know which one you should choose. I hope this helps. Now, if you want to learn from other people who have gone through similar situations, I suggest you watch the next videos I have for you.